That's dead set.
A couple more.
All right, color guard, please post colors.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Twyla, will we start with the officer promotions, please?
Officer promotions.
Thank you. Thank you, councilors, for this opportunity to present you this year's fire department promotions. By the Lisbon Fire Department policies and guidelines, we open positions of the cadre up every 2 years, alternating between positions. So 1 year we interview for deputy at one company and captain at the other company, so that we never have an all-new or young cadre all at one time during any given year. The process is a cover letter and resume based with a screening committee made up of members of the department, who then make recommendations to myself on who they believe would work well in the position. The officers of the Lisbon Fire Department are the backbone of our operation. They are responsible for the collateral duties and the day-to-day management of the members of the department. They are the frontline supervisors on calls and assure all of our assignments are completed in a timely fashion. Each officer holds a minimum Maine State Firefighter 1, and most have courses and certification in fire service management, fire service strategy and tactics, cause and determination, fire ground safety, and incident command. As of this year, I've made it mandatory that all officers will be Maine State certified fire officers within 3 years of being promoted, and currently we only have 3 officers that have not reached that certification, so we're well on our way there. I would like to mention the officers that either kept their positions or who were reappointed to the positions that they have held before. Please stand once I call your name and remain standing. Deputy Chief Mark Vayu, will be holding the position of Deputy Chief for E.T. Smith Hose Company. Deputy Chief Vayu is a 20-year veteran of the department and actually started in Lisbon Falls. He's one of the few members we have that have been members of both companies. Captain William Wallace is not here. He's on duty in Lewiston this evening. Will be holding the position of captain with the Lisbon Falls Fire Company. He's an 11-year member responsible for keeping the fleet of apparatus in the shape that it is. Lieutenant Robert Robitaille, who's also on duty in Brunswick this evening, will be holding the position of lieutenant with the Lisbon Falls Fire Company, and he's a 32-year member in charge of equipment for the department. Lieutenant Lorette, who is here, is an 11-year member who's in charge of the self-contained breathing apparatus for the department, which is one of the most essential pieces of tools that we actually use on the fire scene. Lieutenant Watson, Eric Watson, has been reappointed to the position of lieutenant within E.T. Smith Hose Company. He's a 5-year member in charge of compliance for the department and basically picking up any loose ends that all the other officers basically do. So with that, I'd like to present the newest promotion for the year. Firefighter Calvin Ruling is a 3-year member of the Lisbon Fire Department who completed his Maine State firefighter in 1996 with West Cassett Fire Department. He served that community for 5 years and was employed at Maine Yankee and served on their fire brigade. He has been residing within the town for approximately 8 years. He and his wife Rachel have been married 10 years and have 2 children, and a daughter Cameron, who's 5 years old, and a son Chase, who's 1 year old. And I might add that the whole family is very active with all our fire department functions whenever we get together. Rachel cooks just about every meeting for us, so that's. Since joining Lisbon, firefighter Ruling has been very active in completing his probationary evaluations, attending trainings, and also obtaining the engineer's position within the company. The screening committee and I believe that firefighter Ruling has what it takes to be an exceptional leader within our organization. He has the go-to and get the job done attitude that motivates other members, and he never has a hard time completing tasks. Tonight, he joins the cadre of 10 other officers with about 160 years of experience between us. We believe that C.J. Ruling will have no problem adding to the wealth and knowledge of the department leadership currently has in place. So with further ado, I would like to have C.J.'s brother, Officer Jason Ruling, and Deputy Vayu please come forward for the badge presentation and promotion of Lieutenant Calvin Ruling. You want to do it up front, probably facing the camera. Who has it? Who do you think is older?
We're gonna say, just don't want to step over there.
We don't have all night. Congratulations. Jason, you can sit down. If I could have the other officers that are being sworn in, Twyla will actually do the swearing in.
Please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Mark Bailey,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
and will obey the laws
and will obey the laws
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Maine.
and of the state of Maine,
That I will,
and that I will,
in all respects,
in all respects,
observe the provisions
observe the provisions
of the Charter
of the Charter
and ordinances
and ordinances
of the Town of Lisbon,
of the Town of Lisbon,
and will faithfully
and will faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
of the office.
of the office.
State your office, please. So help me God. Thank you.
There's no other questions? Thank you very much for this time, and we'll evaporate now, so.
Thank you,
Thank
appreciate
you
your
very
service.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well done. Twyla, roll call?
Counselor Bickford?
Here.
Counselor Mason?
Here.
Counselor Bowe?
Here.
Counselor Pomelo?
Here.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Here.
Counselor Ward?
Here.
Counselor Lunt?
Okay.
Next item, Twyla?
Next item is under audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Use the microphone at the podium.
Anybody for audience participation?
Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. I was going to inform or ask, I sent Mr. Eldridge an email, the last video of the 3 January meeting, after audience participation, it cut right off. Psh, nothing after that. I don't know what happened.
Great Falls, who broadcasts that, is trying to find out why that happened. They're not sure yet.
Yeah, I didn't know if they knew or not.
We didn't.
Okay. The other thing is that I'm curious as to why acquisition of real property and economic development is under the executive session. Now, I know there are rules that say from the state of Maine that, you know, if it deals with the town buying property or something like that, that deals with a personal action or bidding process or something along that line, that it's done in executive session. But I can't figure out why, if that's the case on this part of real property, are we going to be briefed after the executive session as to what was held and how much information are we going to be given about what the property was that was in question, or what the economic development was that we're talking about? Because I don't know how secretive the economic development can be. I mean, I don't see a ruling in that in the Maine statutes. So I don't know why that's under here. But not knowing what it's about, I can't tell you whether or not it belongs there or not. So that was my question on that. Okay? Thank you.
Anybody else for audience participation? Seeing none, we'll move on. Twyla?
Is consent agenda, any counselor wishing to have any item removed may do so now. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered next. Order 2012-4 to approve the minutes of January 3, 2012.
So move.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, Twyla?
There are no council orders, resolutions, or ordinances, so it'll be other business. Finance Director's report.
Hello. Okay, you should all have in front of you your reports for December. Given the fact that we're working through the calendar year-end process right now, I was unable to get all of the journal entries posted for the month of December. So from December to January's month end, you'll see a jump in the numbers, but it's because I didn't get all the journal entries posted. I tried to highlight what some of those were, and for those that I missed, I'll make sure to highlight for January's report so you know what that change is. Looking at the revenue side, excise tax is just over 46% collected. was $70,000 for the month. Last December brought in $66,000 with a year-to-date collection of 45%. So we're looking well with the excise tax collection. And state revenue sharing is one of the journal entries that did not get recorded. That came in at $65,000 for the month, bringing the year-to-date total to $424,000, and that's at 52%. So we're right in line with our revenue sharing. For the month of December, a Betty reimbursement payment came in at $107,000. Again, that's not reflected in your report, but will be in the year-to-date total for January. The police department received the first half of their Bowdoin ACO payment in the amount of $4,000. The transfer station has taken in another $15,000 in collections for a year-to-date total of $93,000. In total, the transfer station is 74% collected on their total revenues, which is approximately 17% better than this time last year. So they're doing really well. The recreation department revenues brought in another $5,000 in the before-school program and building rental. And those are the highlights I have for revenues, unless you have questions for me.
Questions, Jessica. On 4014 and 4015, veterans reimbursement and growth reimbursement, did we get extra money?
No, it was the timing of the years. I think if you look back at the year-end 2011, we didn't bring in what was stated, and so it's just a timing of when it came in.
So it was a late payment on those two items?
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, looking at the expenses, total expenditures for the month of December was $788,310. Of this, 52% or $414,000 was related to personnel services, which includes wages and benefits. Contractual services made up approximately 36% at $286,000. This is primarily due to TIF payments of $89,000 and hydrant rental fees of $73,000. As well as waste disposal fees of $28,000, winter public works of $12,000, and other minor expenses, including town buildings of $24,000, which is our heating and electricity, telephone expenses. Repair and maintenance supplies made up 6% at $46,000, primarily due to the gas and fuel purchases. And capital purchases made up 4% at $35,000. And that's what I have for expenses. Any questions?
Mike?
Just a few. On code enforcement, repair and maintenance and operating supplies, we've already expended the budget for that particular line item. I mean, I don't know it's not a ton of money, but
Yeah.
concerned that
I'd have to look at it to see exactly what makes it up. I do know the code enforcement was a fairly new budget being broken out by itself. In the past, it's been combined with assessing, so it was kind of a rough estimate with the operating expenses to know exactly what related just to assessing, without going invoice by invoice detail to see what was made up. So we did our best guess.
Yep.
Some of those, Mike, were some of the expenses we incurred when we tore down the building on Village Street. We had
That
to
was
have,
gonna be
we had-
operating supplies for code enforcement?
well, it should have been contracted services, but, but that's one of the areas that I know we haven't had before, in some of those expenses, but.
How about the fire department operating supplies? They've already expended their budget so far this year. What happened there?
It's a matter of what comes in with the invoicing. I mean, we need to be better with our budgeting, as well as Sean and I usually go through his budget, and we make sure things are classified where they should be, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet with him this year. There may be some minor changes with that. Some of that stuff may or may not be applicable under their truck replacement program, so we tend to do a few journal entries with the fire department.
And the town engineer under contractual services? Also overexpended?
Oops, sorry. That one I would have to look up where it's a year-to-date expense. I don't have that one off the top of my head. I can make a note and get that for you next month.
Okay. I just get concerned that we're overexpending certain line items already. I know we have room within the total budget, but
Right.
I know we're trying to get to a line item budget that we can count on, so.
Yep.
And I have one other question, and I think the school does this. Why don't we encumber all of our wages at the beginning of the year so that those funds can't be spent for anything other than wages? We encumbered them at the beginning of the year, right? I mean, we know how much we're gonna pay people, right? Because that's why we set their salaries and all that stuff. So if we encumbered the wages, it would, I think, force us to manage everything a little closer, because you wouldn't have that money, which we're not supposed to use anyway, for supporting transfers and adjustments and stuff like that. So,
I don't do any transfers when it comes to the personnel lines. The only thing that hits the wage lines are the actual wages for those periods.
I'm just thinking if we encumber it, that it just already shows that that expense is gone, right? So where you stand in total for the year, those monies are already accounted for, because you know you're gonna expend them. Just a thought.
How's that?
That's it.
Any other questions?
And the only other thing I have for you is with the tax collection. As of December 30th, we've collected 100%, or 4.7 million of the September portion. Keeping in mind that that doesn't mean everybody's paid their September portion. Some people have paid extra and some have not paid at all. And also, as of December 30th, we obviously collected 50% of the total tax commitment. Again, with the same disclosure that it just means some people have prepaid and others have not paid.
Where's that typically from where we were years past? I mean, is
It's
it
right in line. It's a little bit lower than our normal collection, but I think last year we were 51% and this year we're 50.
pretty close?
Yep.
All right, thank
And
you.
that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Twyla, next.
Is the Bates College signage project presentation?
Scott, you're on.
Good evening, Council. Good to be with you, as always. I'm here to tell you a little bit about a project that might have flown a little bit under your radar, but we've been working in a collaborative fashion in this building for a couple of months. I was approached earlier last year by Bates College, and in specific an environmental studies program there. Their interest was in working with us as part of a broader regional effort to do sort of community-based research, bring their students into our communities and help us work on a project that's meaningful to us. This is something that's happening all over Androscoggin County. There were 3 pilot projects done, or 8 projects in 3 pilot communities, I should say, Livermore Falls, Lewiston, and yes, Lisbon was one of those 3. And it was really those projects were really aimed at helping to transition the Androscoggin River from what has historically been an industrial resource to, into the future, a recreational tourism type resource. And as I say, in each case, the students who worked on these 8 projects in these 3 different communities were charged with working with us, the municipal government and the community-based organizations, to produce a deliverable, a report, and associated materials that would be helpful to us in the realization of our community goals. So our project in Lisbon was to develop prototype interpretive signage for the 3rd leg of the trail, which is to be constructed this year. That's the one that'll go from the boat landing along the Androscoggin River for the most part and into our downtown. Again, the signage is intended to be interpretive. It tells our story. And it does so from the perspective of what I consider to be sort of four major planks. First, our history, our pre- and post-industrial history. The Androscoggin River, Sabattis River ecology, past and present. Figures and sites along that trail from, again, from that sort of pre- and post-industrial eras. And then lastly, commerce. You know, this trail is going to come down Davis Street and really, for the first time, connect to the Lisbon Falls downtown area. So there was also a look at how can the trail help feed business and economic development in that area. These guys worked with my office, with Ryan Layton, my colleague, and the Trails Commission, and Justin Ledvinitis and Noyes Lawrence are here with us tonight. They were great helps to our students. They also worked with our local historical society. The goal was really twofold from my perspective. It was to provide sort of the dense research that goes with this, and then, you know, give us at the same time a way to tell our story from an interpretive signage perspective. What we have tonight, we have some examples, and it's not a finished product, but it's really giving us the basis from which to work forward. I don't know that we have really exhaustive interpretive signage, but certainly that can help enhance the experience, not only for our local residents, for those who will visit us and walk that trail. And we know that happens already. And then sort of the last piece that I'll mention is that this was coordinated throughout with work that's being done on a much larger regional basis through the Androscoggin Land Trust and their Androscoggin Greenway project, which is really, again, just sort of redefine that river and the communities along it as a sort of a resource from the recreational, from, you know, the learning perspective. And so this was coordinated. So what you'll see tonight is not different or not entirely different than what you'll see in the next community and then the next one and the next one. They'll all have some sort of the same sort of look and feel. The stories will be different in each community, but the look will be, and that is going to be key, I think, in the long term to really developing that trail to the greatest extent we can. So these four students from Bates College in the Environmental Studies program, we have Bradley G., we have Ben Shabbat, we have Gwyneth Johnson, and Georgia Doucette, all worked in individual areas. And then Tom Wenzel, our friend from Bates, he's a professor of chemistry, and he's one of the two instructors from the seminar, along with Jane Costello. So Bradley is going to speak on behalf of the students, so I'm going to introduce Bradley G. to you, and he'll talk a little bit about process, about the things they discovered along the way, who they worked with here.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for hearing us. We had a great time working on this project, and certainly hope you enjoy what we produced here. Like he said, one of our major influences was the theme of the class, of course, the theme of rebranding this river and finding out a way to leverage these two rivers that you have, this resource, and use it to improve Lisbon. Of course, we worked to, one of our other influences was to guide people into the downtown, encourage people to use the resource. And then, of course, the two schools, or three schools, I should say, that are located along the trail, we really wanted to make sure that we were emphasizing all the different kinds of age groups. We also knew that there is an elderly home on the trail, so we were trying to incorporate all of these things and make them really usable. I was just going to list off the topics that we settled upon for the signage that we actually did produce, because I think you guys would find them interesting. All the signs that we have made are here in hard copy, and you may enjoy looking at them. Before I start, I think it's worth saying when you look at them, you'll notice there's like a very consistent design, a color design, as well as the symbology that we use on the signs as well. All of this was pre-planned with a professional, landscape architect, Bob White, who is responsible for the entire Androscoggin Greenway project. And it's also consistent with the Livermore Falls, and the Lewiston Auburn groups who were doing similar projects. So all of us came up with this, the three signage groups specifically came up with this design in order to provide that level of consistency, which will be hopefully continue as the Androscoggin Greenway project grows. The pre-industrial history, Gwyneth took over that for the most part. We know that there was a Pejebscot encampment right at the border of the two rivers there, so we wanted to talk about that. We made a sign about that. This is actually a site of the first encounter between Native Americans and Westerners in Androscoggin County, something that you could easily oversee if you didn't know that about Lisbon, so we thought we'd emphasize that. We also made a sign about a historic canoe route and the way that the Native Americans were able to use that river, the Sabatis River in particular, for travel and a little bit discussion about their daily life. And then another sign that we made was in regards to a land deed document that we found. Thought it would be an interesting teaching tool for some of the middle school or high school even. It's also just interesting to see. Mentions Chief Warumbo in there. And obviously the next topic would be to discuss the mills. So I focused on the industrial history of Lisbon, the Warumbo, Farwell, and Farnsworth mills, and also the trains and the trolley system that run right along the trail. I thought that'd be, appropriate since the trail is physically on the train tracks. The third set of signs is a tree identification sign set. That was designed specifically from a suggestion from the Trails Committee. Someone thought that would be a really great way to educate people and also to encourage people to think about a little bit more about their surroundings while they're on the trail and just generally enjoy themselves and learn something in the process, hopefully. So we made 10 of those. Ben took over that project. We also had another sign that specifically pertains to native fish. The Androscoggin is actually one of the most fantastic fishing spots in Maine, or in the Northeast, so it's said. Although I myself am not a fisher, so I can't speak with any authority on that, but maybe you could. So we made a sign dealing with the native fish populations. And also another sign that dealt directly with the Androscoggin River health issues that they've had in the past, its improvements up until today, and its continued improvements in the future. We thought that was really important to inform the public about that, and also, it's a concern, so we thought we'd bring it up. And then the last part, Georgia took over, and that was us trying to coordinate with the businesses in the downtown area, as well as just sort of thinking about how do you get more people onto a trail. So we did some research, or I should say Georgia did some research on how that would be best done. And so there's a set of signs that pertains to directional, making sure people know where they are on the trail, encouraging people coming through the highway to get off the trail, slow down and stop and enter Lisbon. And this is another way to just get a more populace into the Lisbon downtown community. So that was what we were working on there. Those were our 4 sets of signs, so I hope you guys will take a look at those. We're pretty proud of them as they are. Is there anything more that you wanted me specifically to speak on? Okay. Yeah. No, we hope that the project is seen through. I know that there are some challenges ahead of us, but hopefully you guys will be able to see it in production at some point. That'd be great. So, good luck.
We thank you. A lot of work there. Yeah.
A lot of work. Thank you very much.
Well, and the end product is a bunch of prototypes here that we see in living color, but we also have on disc in a design program that we can carry forward from here. I was talking with Justin earlier, and we talked about sort of the next life of these signs, and that's to work with the Trails Commission and other groups here in town to sort of refine them and take them even further if we can, prepare for these things to actually take their place along the trail, provided we can find some funding to do that. So thank you. But again, there's an end product that we have, and the college and the students willingly pass along to us. I do want to thank all these guys. They were fun to work with. I think we're, very much the beneficiary of their youth and enthusiasm and curiosity. Tom and Jane to make all of this happen and bring it to us. And I know that we've talked, Tom, recently over the email about the possibility for future projects. And so that's where I'll close with you tonight. This is a tremendous community resource. No, it's not in Lisbon, but it's right next door, and they very much consider themselves part of our community as well. So we're going to continue to look for opportunities to work together into the future, not just on projects like this, but others. So I don't know if you have any questions for me or the students, or
If possible, would be maybe possible to put those down so the audience can,
I would be
maybe take a
happy to.
look at them if
And
possible.
I would further say, thank you, Mr. Chairman, because that just reminds me that I got a whole pile of these things in my office, and we'll look to maybe use the case out here to display them in the future. I'll leave this group, if I could get them back, for folks to take a look at. We can pass them around if you'd like. But again, thanks for your time, and thanks to you guys for all that you did on behalf of. Yeah.
All right, let me just jump in real quick. This is a great project. This is a great project, and I really appreciate being able to actually, as a committee member, and also possibly as a committee chair with that Trails Committee, actually take this project and see that it's a very long-term project, but also use it today. I'm thinking that we can use this project more in lines with committee discussion. Take an idea and have it in format to really base discussions off of and get a broader perspective on what we can actually do with this. If you want to have more time with this project right now, you can go down to the trail, and then there are kiosks. I do have several already posted in there, discussing the several bits and pieces of Lisbon history that are within the vicinity of this trail. And knowing that, and knowing the different parts of the history, knowing the different, all the the nature perspective and the business perspective, historical perspective, you can utilize this into a management plan, which we are currently trying to just chip away at. How is this trail working within this community? So we're working towards that, and I think this project speaks to a lot of that, and we're hoping to use that today. And hopefully in the future, this may be the assembly and the look and the feel of what an interpretive signage may look sometime in the future. And that may also be something collaborative with other communities, with other things going on within Androscoggin County. So we look forward to doing that sometime in the future. We don't know when, but I think we can use this information now, and I hope we can. So thanks a lot for letting me come up.
Thank you.
We thank you, very much. I think it's going to be a good stepping stone. We sat through a meeting the other night with a group of people from town, and believe it or not, a large portion of that meeting was the idea of them talking about the signs in town, not just for the trails, but everywhere from downtown to all over town, having consistent signs that actually work, that are meaningful. So, this project really speaks to that you really have taken that and really put a good meaning behind what good signs can do. We thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla.
Is the Lisbon Connection update.
I just thought I'd update you on where we are in the Lisbon Connection, the bus service. I met with members of the DOT, the FTA, and AVCOG, the director of the ATRC program, and MPO, and asked them about continuing funding from April to June 30th. They assured me that there was funding available for that. My question to them was, if Lisbon took on this service on our own, would that funding be available and to us to utilize? And they explained to me that the governor approves several nonprofit groups to provide this kind of urban transportation. The money has to go through them. It comes into the DOT from the federal government and then gets dispersed through AVCOG. But she was going to follow up with that to see if that was something that we could do. In the meantime, Pat Christian, who is the CEO of Western Maine Transportation, and I are trying to get a date to put together to talk about the continuing service. There's going to be an increase, more than likely, to cover some costs that we'll have to pay. It's a 50-50 match. We have not seen an increase in that cost long before, since I've been here anyway. I don't know if it changed before that, but I know it changed in 2000 because I got a kind of a brief agreement between Western Maine and Lisbon. Doesn't really seem to be much of a contract, but so we're going to be sitting down, we're going to be looking at routes, we're going to be looking at how the service is provided, where the service picks up people, and the times it picks up people, and I'm also going to talk to him about some of the things that we've been talking about, was providing a service to people outside the route of elderly people who can't get to the bus stops and need rides to their doctors and can't use the community concepts funding, which is for low income. So there's a lot of things we need to work out, but I'm hoping by the end of February, if not sooner, we'll have a real clear idea of what's going to happen. And I'll bring it back to you. And I've stayed in touch with Rick Green on this service, and he would prefer to stay, not necessarily get into the transportation business more than he already is, but if it was something that we need to take on, he'd be willing to work with us on that, so like he has already. Any questions on? No? Okay.
Definitely a lot of dynamics with this as we look into it more. I noticed the other day when it was a bad day, the school had canceled and the bus was still running through town, bringing people back and forth, so there's a lot of dedication that's put through that bus route now, but I think it's really important that we stay on top of it to make sure we do our funding to keep it going and make it work as you are. But is there any other questions from council on that at this point? Next item, Twyla.
Is the Parks Department discussion?
Fern had asked me to put this on the agenda just to bring everybody up to date on what I have tasked Verla to do. Since the Green Thumb Gang has handed it back to the town, I guess I'd say, and didn't have, Faye was ready to walk away from it. Verla and myself sat down and decided that we should see if we can work with Faye and all the people of the Green Thumb Gang to really catalog what we have for gardens to take care of, what it's going to entail. They had a meeting on last Monday. It sounded like it was very constructive. We've had people from even Lewiston who want to participate, but we're working on that. She's cataloging everything. The Public Works Department, we're looking at having her take over all the mowing that takes place in town, so it will be picking up a lot more than what she has been doing in the past. It'll be all done, and we'll make a presentation to you when we get to that discussion. But probably not contracting with some of the people that we've been contracting with in the past to take care of some of our gardens. We'll be taking on that ourselves to try to save some money, and I hope, and I'm confident that Verla will do a good job. But all that will come before you when we get into the department discussions later on in February before the budget process starts. We'll have some information to share with you about that.
Any questions from council as far as on this? I think it's moving forward. I did attend a meeting with Parks and the Green Thumb Gang, and it went very well from what I could see. I see we're in good hands. It was actually managed very well. It just seems like everybody's pretty excited. One thing we have is a beautiful town, and as we move forward to improve our image, I think this is a very important part to keep going and even to expand. So I'm kind of excited to see kind of all our parks in one budget, and then we can move from there. And the outcome of that meeting was, for me, a lot of people were very concerned that we actually have all of the proper needs taken care of, and that she has all of the capabilities of doing the job, which I'm sure she does, and we actually give her the support she needs to make it happen. So, and I think that will happen. It's just a matter of getting all the plans in place. So, is there any other no questions at all?
No. There's been a lot of work that I think is really important to Lisbon that Verla has already done, which is cataloging the types of flower beds we have, the trees that we take care of, what is the right type of care, and all that's going to be on a spreadsheet. So no matter what happens when we're long gone, that information will be available to whoever takes that on, and it's a good collection of data, and she's done a lot of work already, so.
Even as they mentioned earlier about some of the history of why these gardens were there, what do they represent, and there's a lot of history in a lot of those gardens. So I mean, it's really exciting to have that all documented so we can make sure it keeps going. Thank you. Next item, Twyla.
Town managers report.
Most of what you've talked about would have been on my report, but the other thing that I'll bring up is a dispatch update. The town, David Brooks and I, are continuing to work with all the other approximately 10 communities and the county sheriff's department. We have come up with a pretty solid budget. We have which everybody's in agreement. They think this represents a fair cost to operate and the number of personnel we would need and all that goes with that. We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning in Green at 8:30. We will be talking, our last meeting, we discussed bylaws, and we have put together a draft for them to look at tomorrow. They've all had a chance to look at it. We are also looking at interlocal agreements from different communities from Cumberland and also from Sanford, and looking at how that works. Everybody's in agreement if the thing does come about that the contracts will be uniform across, so no one town or non-profit or whatever it is that works with us, if we go that far, we'll have something that's consistent. That's real important. And then on February 8th, I've been contacted by the county commissioners, including our new county commissioner, Beth Bell. They have scheduled a time here on a Wednesday afternoon, the 8th, on 3 o'clock, to do a walk-through our dispatch center, and anybody here is welcome to attend if you'd like to be part of that. We will go through a budget process with them and what we've come up with. Also, the bylaws and structure of a regional committee, as well as hopefully a sample contract that we will have. So I think we've come a long way. David's done a tremendous amount of work, and all the managers have had a lot of input into this and agreements, and some of their elected officials have been attending some of our meetings. It's been very positive. They all feel, at least the 10 communities we're working with, that this is a good alternative. So just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you. Any questions? Twyla, next.
Is under appointments. Order 2012-5 Recreation Committee member resignation.
Steve, do you want to?
Steve Curtis.
I received a letter of resignation from Steve Curtis. It should have been in your packets. It's unfortunate, Steve, from little I know of him and the short time I've been here, has been a long-term member of that committee. He's contributed a lot. It's unfortunate that he's resigning. I thank him for all the years that I'm aware of things that they've done, but he has decided to step down.
Steve, part of his letter was asking if he could actually retain helping out with the ball fields. Is that something we could work with?
Absolutely.
Steve and
Yep.
with Mark to make sure, because I know he does have a passion there and spends quite a bit of time working with the
He's
fields.
very committed with the Pine Woods fields, and his family has done a tremendous amount of work in creating those fields and maintaining those fields. So I definitely will accept any help he wants to do.
Good, if you can help with that, that'd be great. Do I
Yeah.
hear a motion?
Make a motion to accept this resignation.
Second that.
Mark?
Vote. Yep.
All those in favor?
Vote 7-0. Passed.
And we're working on that committee to make sure we fill all the seats, Steve.
Yes, I will. Yep.
Next item, Twyla.
Counselor Communications.
Is there anybody that has anything they would like to speak?
All set.
Mark, Gina, you all set? Just a couple things is I did attend a meeting with the Green Thumb Gang. I was out to Beaver Park. It was a nice warm fire atmosphere, which was kind of nice. I think there is a lot of dedication in this town that's been put in these gardens, and I hope that we can actually put our support behind the group doing it, and with management behind it also, to make sure we actually maintain. And one of the strong messages I got from leaving that was it's not just the Green Thumb Gang, and not just then, it's a community effort, which I think that as we move forward, that will be part of it. Talking about our gateways, our downtowns, our parks, it is a big package, and I think we have the right person to bring that all together, so I'm pretty excited about it, and I think if we can give the right support, we'll see great things. So I think that's a very important item. That's where I stand. All set. Next item, Twyla.
Is under executive session, Order 2012, 6, 7, and 8, to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 4056C, acquisition of real property, economic development, and personnel matters.
Just to make a note before we go in, we won't be coming out to make any statements or any votes. It's strictly an informational executive session.
So move.
Second it.
Okay, we're actually going to vote on the idea of going into executive session. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
I'm going to have Scott sit in on the economic